So, in this episode, the Two Business Guys Mastermind on why you should keep your ears to the ground so that you can hear where the customer footsteps are going. Enjoy. This business podcast, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. Welcome back, everybody. The Two Business Guys are masterminding today, and I can tell you we're fired up. The reason we're fired up, John, is because we launched our business from scratch, our newsletter last week, and I wanted to come on and start talking about some new directions that we can take all that we're doing so that it is in people's best interest. And one of the things I was thinking about is doing just things that people want. Now, we've got a whole bunch of episodes and, they're doing pretty good. But now I'm thinking that, we need to tap into the vein of what people are searching for. We need to tap into the vein what people are absolutely crying about in terms of their businesses. And if we can do that, then I think the second half or the second season of the Two Business Guys Mastermind could have a huge impact on who we're trying to help. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about our launch. We did a soft launch, everybody.
April 3rd, we launched our first newsletter. So it was the very first pre-Easter newsletter, and lots of great information. And I think we sent that out to over 600 individuals.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to, getting the feedback on it. And now we did this, everyone, when you're doing your business from scratch and you're kind of deciding on what you're going to literally put out to people. One of the best ways is to put out to people that are already looking for something. That's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today, is doing your business the right way, not the way you want it to go. Right? So, John, we talk about the right way. We're seeing so many businesses that are starting up. They're doing, a whole bunch of just like them type stuff, and nobody's listening.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is what's on our mind isn't necessarily what's on everybody else's minds. So we have to really have our ear to the ground in what, what's trending. What do people want to know? What are they into right now? Because if we're talking about treasury bonds and everybody else is talking about cryptocurrency, we're not really in the game.
And that's really, I think, a powerful statement. And it speaks to just a huge question. Does your business have its ear to the ground? In other words, is it listening to where all the footsteps are going? And I think this is how businesses die. They don't have their ear to the ground. They're so intent on doing what they want to do, what they built up an expertise in, and these new areas, this other stuff that's happening. They kind of go, well, we have no expertise in that. In fact, we know nothing about it, and therefore we don't want to do it. And that to me, John, sounds like fear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think fear is part of it, and discomfort, not just fear, but then also our selfishness, our pride on what we want to do.
Mm.
And I think that gets in the way of a lot of entrepreneurs, is they have something stuck in their mind, the way a product should look, the way a product should be, the way they want to sell it, who their customer is. And they don't want to deviate that, even though the market's telling them, hey, this isn't working the right way. If you tweak this or tweak that, then you'll increase your sales.
That part right there is how I'd like to, make the adjustments and adapt what we talk about, right? It's two of us, two smart guys, two hardworking guys, two guys that, that have, I think, the ability to be explorers. And our exploration is for the benefit of others. So I would love to see us going into and finding out more about in the crypto space, right? I can tell you right now, it is something that is so heavy on my mind, but I'd like to have a partner that I work with. Who am I going out there and digging in a spot with versus me by myself? Because you might notice something. All right. I was listening to the other day, I was on a podcast listening to a guy, and he had these two Indian billionaires on there. It was one of the guys that bought the everyday art, the NFT everyday, for $69 million. And here was the dynamic. So one guy says, hey, listen, one guy was the money guy, and one guy was what he called himself the sniffer. He says, I'm a truffle sniffer. So he goes and finds these things. He talks to the money guy, and he kind of makes the money guy, get into this space. Because the money guy says, hey, I didn't know much about this, but my sniffer kind of put me on game a little bit. He put me in position to understand this stuff. Then he says, and this guy was an engineer by training. He says, I started applying my engineering training, and then I didn't move on it. And then his guy says, hey, listen, we need to move on this. And next thing you know, he bought he paid $69 million for this NFT art, right? Now, the guy who sold the art is a guy who, and this is a really cool thing, right? Now, NFTs are built on the blockchain, right? So that's something to understand. Bitcoins, all the coins are built on the blockchain. So this is another category of being built on the blockchain. And I can remember when I started an LLC that, encompassed blockchain technology, augmented reality, and some of the hottest things, life science, that I thought was going. And all its job is to invest and hold those investments in those areas. But I remember saying, and this was like probably 3 years ago, as I looked at Bitcoin, and I says, I should not invest in Bitcoin. I should invest in the infrastructure that Bitcoin goes on. So let me find companies that are that. It's like you don't invest in the companies that are back in the day when the internet was like new. Don't necessarily invest in those companies, invest in the internet, right? In other words, find everything you can about that and then build stuff on that infrastructure. That's the investing in that, creating multiple companies. Amazon says, hey, we're building on the internet. Now you can invest in Amazon, do well, but the fact is what undergirds that is the internet. So blockchain and all the stuff that's spewing off as a result of it is absolutely amazing. So the Two Business Guys Mastermind, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be diving into that stuff, looking at a lot of different things and saying, hey, listen, here's how you can make this, work for you. And then when we go over to our newsletter, we'll be able to talk about that. And we'll be like, hey, this is how you get your Entre Hustler on with NFTs. This is how you get your Entre Hustle on with, this other technology, whether it is BitClout or all these different things, right? Because as an explorer, that's our job. But then explorers need to eat too. So that's where we will be using the newsletter vehicle and all that kind of stuff. So if you guys are listening out there, start asking yourself these questions as well for your business. Where can I go that my business can get better because of what's already being started that may not have anything to do with what niche you're in? Can you use the concepts of NFT? Right? That's what and I love doing this stuff anyway, but that's what we're going to be exploring. The Two Business Guys are going to be masterminding on that kind of stuff and bringing it to you so that you've got some stuff you can say, hey, they pushed it out there. I didn't even know about this stuff. Right? Now that's our job to go find it for you. And it's also our job, And I think we're going to be doing just a excellent job of saying, now this is how you can use it. That, in my estimation, John, is what's missing. Is how do I see it, but how do I use it?
Absolutely.
And we can, and you're
and
really
not
good at that anyway, right? Think about the pipeline company that you owned. Did you ever say, what can we innovate off of?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we moved in a lot of different directions. We changed the different types of utilities that we went after. We changed. Uh, we went into different markets. Yeah, a lot of different things. And I think it's important when you venture into something that is, I don't I don't know if complex is the right word, or confusing, or whatnot, of cryptocurrency, of fungible transactions, or Bitcoin, all of that, and breaking it down to a level that we can all understand.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people, when they hear these things, their mind is spinning, because the only thing that they could think about is tangible money, the
Yep.
the dollar bill, the coins,
Yep.
gold, even the worth of gold.
Built on the gold standard.
Yeah. And 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 it's kind of like, even the stock market um is obscure to a lot of people, and that's why very few individuals, only the most wealthy individuals, use trade stocks on, generally. um, some individuals in the working class may have mutual funds and whatnot, in which they use for retirement purposes. But generally speaking, if you're talking about individual stock trade, usually it's those of higher net wealth, and they're the ones that are getting into this new type of currency. And what does this mean for the future? And these types of currencies aren't backed by governments, so no FDIC insurance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not traded on NASDAQ, and et cetera, et cetera. So what does this look like globally?
Right. And
And
neither
how?
was the internet, everybody. The internet
Right.
wasn't backed by anybody. They were going, what is this mess?
Yeah. And so what does this look like globally? And is this something that does define our future? You think about, just 150 years ago, a lot of regions had their own banks, and they were stamping their own money within the United States.
Yeah.
So you think about that. Now we have a centralized, currency from the Department of Treasury, but things evolve, things change, and we're going in that direction. Are we going to be left behind, or are we going to stretch ourselves into learning about these new things, and be able to get into it at an early enough stage, where we could actually make some money?
And John, and that is the perfect opportunity for the two business guys masterminding on this stuff. Right now, think about our transition. Right at the first, when we first began our podcast, over 60 episodes ago, we were talking about starting a business. Here's some of the things to do to start. Now, when we start thinking about the maturation of your business, now we're going to be talking about pulling in these principles from these things that are happening right before our eyes that are making and minting millionaires. Now, get this, John. The guy that was on this podcast that I was watching was a billionaire on paper. Now, he obviously made enough money to, buy this $69 million piece of art. But there's such a unique story, because what ended up happening was that same guy, after he had these two guys on, he had oh no, it was before. He had the guy who sold the art, right? It was a guy, the everyday project was a guy who was just doing some kind of painting every single day.
Mm.
Now, that's not terribly unique. There was another artist, a couple other artists that were doing paintings every day, and he would sell them for, $1, $2, $5, and he made a lot of money. The main thing that he said he was doing this for is because he wasn't very good and he wanted to get better. So since 2007, he was
Mhm.
doing these pieces of art every day. Then somebody, he didn't even know, his name is Beeple, Beeple. He didn't even know about this, that much about the NFTs and crypto. Somebody said to him, hey, maybe you ought to put your stuff on this. He did it. He sold one piece for a couple $100,000. And he was like, wait a minute, who's paying for this stuff? Then he sold a piece for like some odd $2 million. Then somebody came in and bought his whole collection of everydays. This guy who bought it then ended up coming on to this other, came on to the podcast, because I'm sure the guy who had one guy on, he then says, well, who bought this? Found them, attracted them to the podcast because he's got over, over 1 million followers, et cetera, right? So then they came on, it's two Indian dudes, and they talked about how he did it. The guy's living in Singapore. He says, listen, I live in Singapore because the taxes is better, blah, 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 right? And he says, but now I can break up, get this, I can break up those everydays, and the value based on what's happening in the NFT space, the value of them is over $1 billion. Because I bought this for 69 million. So that kind of put the price out there for this type of stuff, right? And it shows the graduation of when the guy was just not very good to getting better. And now you see what's happening here. If we use these now as business principles for our stuff, what is it that you can do every day? Now, this guy, what he said, he was a very well-known graphic artist. So he had, a whole bunch of followers. He was very well known, but he wasn't so well known. People were paying $69 million for his stuff. It's all brand new to him. He's like, the guy asked him and said, what are you doing with the money? He says, I am doing nothing. I don't know anything yet. I know I got $70-some million when he was probably making, maybe $100,000, a couple $100,000 at the most from people. He said he just, people would ask him to do jobs. He'd do the job, get paid. With this, when these guys came in and says, hey, we would like to buy this, it was very different than other art where you buy it once and the artist gets paid and that's it. It can go up in value to millions and millions of dollars, and that artist never gets paid again. Well, because of the way they structured it, he gets 2% of anything that they do with that art. So if they break it up, he said, I didn't really like that. But he said, but if they sell it for $2 billion, I get 2% of that. And that's just because of the way he structured it. And now the artist continually gets fed. Now, let's back up. Where is that on? It's on the blockchain, which allows that kind of authentication of ownership. I own this. I started this. This is my original. They built something on top of the blockchain, NFTs, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, if you will, right? So all of these different things are built on this central thing. Does that sound familiar, everybody? Things built on a central thing. Does it sound like internet? So all those folks out there that says, I missed on the internet, let's not miss on blockchain. So let's dig in. This is what the two business guys are going to be masterminding on in that particular category. When we decide to talk about crypto and all that you can do with that, then we are going to be out there and we'll probably test some things out like we did starting our newsletter. And then what we can do is, John, we can start taking pieces of information that we find, we bring it over to our newsletter, bam. Now we've got an opportunity to monetize that while we're helping folks. Because we'll be finding all the things, all these new and exciting things relative to what we're talking about. And now we can have and do it on our podcast, talk about it, do it, and then put it in the newsletter. All coming from, one piece of research or one white paper that we come and then we mastermind on, putting our information on it. Then this is what I'm excited about, John, because we now can bring in particular and solid business principles to this new stuff. I like to call that when old school goes new, right? Old school stuff, right? Solid. This is how stuff gets done. It's worked for 150 years with, hey, this is exciting. This is new. Those two things coming together, oh my gosh, a powerful mix. We can be talking to multiple people. People that are like, I don't know about this stuff, but then I like these guys. I trust them. They're breaking stuff out. They're making it simplified for me. And then over here with the new stuff, right? We are applying principles that are tried and true in that work. And I think that could be exciting for some folks. I really do. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm really looking forward to jumping into all the things that matter to you guys. We're going to be finding out what you're searching about. You can also send us an email. Send us an email about what you would like us to explore.
And I think what's more exciting about this is opportunities for us to grow and learn as well. Because when we're doing this research, we're going to increase our knowledge, and it's not only valuable for you as the listener, but it's valuable for us too. And listening to us in real time process through some of these things.
Right.
And because we want this to be as natural and as real as possible, we're not coming to you as a college professor, telling you what these different types of currencies and whatnot are about, giving you the FAQs, but we're also answering questions that are popping up in our mind in real time. Like, what does this mean for our economy? What does this mean to us personally? So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun, John. I'm so looking forward to it. And it's like I'm really starting to see why they talk about sticking with the something that you've started. Right. And here's another lesson for everybody. Because come on, you get bored with stuff and you go, oh, what are you talking about this week? But until you interject into what you're doing something that is you're unfamiliar with, it's not until then that you feel excited sometimes about the stuff that you're doing. You're going out on a limb, right? It's a little bit over your skis, if you will. You kind of don't know, and that's kind of exciting. It's like when we were, really, really young, and we did stuff that we look back now at and go, "What were you thinking?" Well, I was thinking about having a thrill. I was thinking about having some fun. This is what you'll be getting when you come over to the Two Business Guys Mastermind and all the other stuff that we roll out, right? Whether it's the Entre Hustler newsletter, it is you now have an opportunity to look in, see what we're doing, see how we test things out, use us as guinea pigs, if you will, because we'll be throwing a couple of coins at these things too. And then you now have a chance to learn in a whole different way. But here's what's even more important is not just getting more information. We're done with that. We're talking about giving you action steps, right? Hey, let's try this. And I love all things business. And you probably guys can tell I probably talk a little bit too much, get too excited, right? But I love this stuff. And I got to remember that just because I love it in the way that I love it doesn't mean you love it or even like it in the way that I love it. So we're going to be turning that around a little bit, turning the business model around and saying, what are we finding out people want, like? And then we put our brains on it. Oh my gosh. And we're talking about Fun City, everybody. Right? I'm looking forward to some of our debates because John, you might say, dude, there's no way we shouldn't be not investing in 401ks. And I may come in and say, man, 401ks are played out. I'm investing over here. And then we have this debate back and forth, and you guys get a chance to go, oh man, let me get the popcorn. Let me get the popcorn. These guys are all for the benefit of you guys getting out there and making it happen, right? Getting out there, making money in a whole different way. Right? And I'm looking forward to it, man.
The really cool thing when you're dealing with currencies and money and the market and whatnot, you're you're not talking about the short game. We're talking about the long game, because usually when we're putting money in there, it's not a get rich quick. You know, I'm going to throw it in for 6 months and I'm going to be rich. But usually we leave these investments in for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So think about this when you're listening to us is, hey, what is my long game, and what best suits my needs, and what is my propensity to risk. You know, am I someone who gets anxious if I lose money, or how much money, or whatnot? But
Yeah.
just start answering, just asking yourselves those questions, because you want to be real, and you don't want to put yourself in a place where you're feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah. And we don't it on top of what you just said there, John, what's exciting about that is we know people have different tolerances for risk. I'll give you an example from my own life. When the stock market back in 2008 and 2009, I was affected by that, right? I had, a lot of real estate and I got smacked hard. I had a lot of mutual funds and stocks and junk like that. I got smacked. Everything was down 40%. Can you imagine opening up and you all your stuff is down 40%? Your real estate is reeling. Why? Because people lost their jobs and the way I had it rented out, all that kind of stuff, right? So it made me take a different look at things. This is when I started thinking more about creating instead of consuming. That's when I started writing. I think I wrote my first book a year later, maybe 2 years later, so that I can have stuff out there that earn me money in a whole different way. Right? You got these. I says I'm gonna create my own mutual fund by having a whole bunch of digital properties out there. So these are the kind of things that now, as I transition, I found myself getting kind of conservative again. It's like, oh, I don't want this to, because of what happened. I want to make sure I got a lot of cash. I want to make sure I got this, right? Make sure everything's paid for. And I became, in my estimation, a little unexciting. I was looking at my own life like, I'm bored with you. And so this is when I says, okay, it's time to kind of jump back in, right? And it's always good when you can jump back in with somebody. It's unlikely that both of you will drown. You hope, right? He came to save me and he drowned too. So it is with that in mind that I started collaborating with people, started coming together saying, hey, let's work together. And some of those collaborations were abysmal failures. Trust when I say that. And I've lost some money or some money just went away. Okay, that happens. But the rebound from that becomes what you do as a result of that. How do you get fired up? Right. So that's when I, create the LLC that just invest in super speculative stuff, send some, in fact, I got some crypto. Right. And what's funny, John, is that I remember buying the crypto, but I forgot about it. I forgot all about it. And what made me think about it was I saw something that they were talking about. I said, man, that sounds familiar to me. And I thought, wait a minute, I think I got Coinbase. I got some stuff. Went in there, man, and my little investment had grew pretty good. I was like, oh. So I had been taking advantage of it, right? But I just didn't go deep into it. Now it's like, hey, it's time to think about not just crypto in that particular area. There's so many good things coming. The age of automation, everyone, is absolutely here. And a lot of people are going to be negatively impacted by automation. Imagine our cars, John.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need drivers because if they're automated, and I go, oh, that stinks. But then I think, wait a minute, I don't have to drive. That means I can get some work done. I'm doing that. Little things like that, everybody. We don't want you dead when this happens. We want you being able to take advantage of this. So our little digging and finding out and creating things based on this, look in, take a look at it. We're not bragging here. We're just giving you blueprints. Not bragging, giving you blueprints. I've been saying that a lot. I'm showing you this, not to brag, but to show you a blueprint. When you're ready to jump in, we're here to help you do it in the best way possible, considering your risk tolerance, considering that you know nothing about this. Well, we're going to have our researchers out there and we're going to be doing our research, and then we're going to bring it to you and says, this is interesting, or this is a fool's errand. Let's try it anyway. I thought Pinterest was a fool's errand. I kid you not. Pinterest? I was like, oh, this is the worst idea ever. Who wants to go to a site with a bunch of pictures? Apparently, a whole lot of people, because it became a unicorn company that ended up, I think, $1 billion company. Mm-hmm. That's when I said, stop thinking from your perspective. Start thinking from what people seem to want. Now Pinterest is a juggernaut. I'm going to be doing some coaching stuff. I'm going to be doing a test of a coaching program, putting it on Pinterest. Pictures, pictures, pictures. Click here, boom, go to my coaching website, landing page. People are already there looking for something. I don't have to get on there because, I'm kind of in shape, right? But I mean, imagine if you had a site that sold supplements and you had these beautiful people on there, all bodied out, and people say, oh, I like that, click. And they're going buying your stuff because Pinterest exists. Blockchain is going to be like that as well, I believe. Internet, blockchain. And then what will come, 10 or 20 years next is something else. Let's get into this stuff, everyone. The two business guys are going to be masterminding on all of that stuff. Be on the lookout for our new titles. The stuff that you see the title that, let's say we have a title, John, that might say the two business guys mastermind on how to use NFT to retire or something. Mm-hmm. Bringing in the old with the new, right? How to use NFTs to pay for your kids' college. Oh, what? How to use NFTs to skip going to college. Who knows? Be on the lookout, everybody. I'm looking forward to it. John, what can we say before we wrap it up here to our listeners?
Stay tuned. Exciting stuff on the horizon. This is going to be a good opportunity to really dive into real world issues and help our listenership and ourselves to not be behind in understanding how we could benefit from these new obscure currencies that most of us aren't really sure about.
We don't want anybody left behind, and we're going to be exploring a lot of stuff. This is going to be the most exciting times, I believe, that we could possibly transition into, right? And then we're going to be putting the coin in and trying stuff, and you get a chance to look in and see. We look forward to having you. Let's talk next time. Thanks, John. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Randy.
Take care.